welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very informative show coming right up with special guest Dan Schawbel, and he's here to share with us his new book, Back to Human: How Great Leaders Create Connection in the Age of Isolation. Now, Dan is a New York Times bestselling author, partner and research director at Future Workplace, and founder of both Millennial Branding and WorkplaceTrends.com. Through his company, he's conducted dozens of research studies and worked with major brands including American Express, GE, Microsoft, IBM, Coca-Cola, and Oracle. Dan has been recognized on several lists including INC's 30 Under 30 and Forbes 30 Under 30. So let's welcome to the show Dan Schawbel.
So happy to be here with you.
What a pleasure it is to have you here. My goodness, you're getting such great reviews for this book. You must be so happy.
So happy, but like the other two books, every book was rejected by every publisher besides one. And the process for both writing, selling, promotion was very daunting. But because of all that work and how it didn't come easy, I appreciate it more, and I'm more grateful because of it.
Well, hey, congratulations on your great success. I know that the book has been flying off the shelves for very good reason. And so I've got a list of questions. We'll see how much we can get through today, because I'm sure that, your book covers so much. We could talk for days on it. So, in your book, you talk about how technology is isolating and hurting us. I think most of us know the answer to that question, but I'd love for you to share your insights on that.
Technology has created the illusion that we're very connected, when in reality, we feel more isolated and lonely from our misuse and overuse of it. You could feel like you're around so many people, whether you're in the subway, walking the streets, or in an office, yet around no one at the same time, because people are physically there, but not mentally, spiritually, or emotionally. And we tap our devices over 2,600 times a day, look at our phones every 12 minutes. During a business meeting, we text an average of 5 times, so we're not really paying attention and embracing the people around us, where, a lot of people are more concerned with the likes and comments of people they don't even know on social media rather than the people they're actually with. And that can really kind of distort our reality. We think we have a lot of friends, Facebook friends, yet, how many people are actually going to be there for us in, tough times. And in the workplace especially, if we don't have a socialized workforce and people feel disconnected, they're more likely to leave. Yeah.
Well, and, I'd love for you to expand on that in regards to the workforce, because I'm sure it's getting hit extremely hard, because when we look at relations, when we're working with a group of people, we have to connect with them. We have to relate.
Yeah, we did a study for the book with Virgin Pulse of 2,000 managers, employees in 10 countries. And one of the focus areas was on work friendships. And the reason why I focused on that is because we're spending a third of our lives working. A lot of people would say they spend more time with their coworkers than their family. And after studying workplace cultures for over a decade, I found that the best ones feel like a family. Like you feel like there's a sense of belonging and purpose and trust and happiness, the 4 employee engagement factors in the book. And so we found that 7% of the global workforce has 0 friends at work, and half have 5 or fewer. And the average work week in the United States is 47 hours a week for a full-time salaried employee. Not having your phone is the new vacation. We're responding to emails and texts outside the office and on weekends. And so it's never been more important to get along and even be friends with the people you work with, because if you have poor relationships with them, that's going to affect not just your work life, but your personal life.
Well, and it seems that we have a whole generation that they're not even sure how to connect with people, because they're so used to checking those devices, looking for this illusion of importance when people are liking things or commenting or what have you. And so it's got to be a little difficult for them to learn how to connect with others.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. There was a study by Cigna of 20,000 U.S. adults, and they found that younger people are more lonely than even senior citizens. And in the study we did for the book, we found that, yes, young people feel a more sense of isolation and loneliness, as well as men and introverts.
Those are some scary, when we look at it, it's really scary statistics. It makes us kind of pause and think a little bit. So what are some ways that people can gradually start communicating with others, and I understand that also improves their well-being?
Yeah, we looked at what leaders can do to foster stronger, socially connected workplace cultures and found that it's all about social events, team building activities, and workations. A workation is taking your team maybe outside of a city or a state or a country, so it's not, you don't feel like you're at work, and you can more or less open up in a way that you couldn't at a physical office. And so team building activities could be, a volunteer day, where you're helping build a home or teaching little kids how to read with your coworkers and getting to know them outside of the work context. The best way to establish a friend relationship is not to talk about work all the time. Just talk about personal related things. That's how people actually connect, not at a superficial work level. And so the best leaders are the ones who know that and create an environment that's very trusting where people can bring their full selves into the workplace and be who they are. Thus, they're more likely to share great ideas because they know they won't be punished for doing that, and they'll feel more relaxed, and work will be a true extension of their personal life.
They really can get to know the people they're working with and understand, hey, these people are human too. We can connect on a really deeper level.
Yeah, and it's so important because, it's much easier to quit a job when you just have a bunch of acquaintances rather than having friends or best friends. And that's what, there's a study called Vital Friends by Gallup many years ago, and, it's influenced me, and that's why I did more work on work friendships for this book. I interviewed 100 top young leaders at some of the best companies in the world. A lot of them are technology companies, coincidentally, and every company is kind of becoming a technology company. But they even realize that it feels very isolating, in the workplace. Because even if you're in a physical office, you can feel isolated. Like what I did early in my career, I would get lunch and just sit at my cubicle all day. And that, even though I'm around people, I'm still isolated. So you could be working from home or in an office, wherever you are. And if you don't put the effort in to actually reach out and talk to someone and get coffee with them or lunch or establish meetings with them or doing something outside of work with them, then you can feel isolated, and that can be detrimental, not just to your productivity, but your health. Because if you're so busy worrying about being lonely and feeling disconnected from work and society, how are you supposed to bring your best self and do your best job?
Well, Dina, and it has me kind of wondering, because you've written several other books that have been highly successful as well. What was kind of some of the inspiration with all this behind this book?
Yeah, every book helps you get to the next phase of your career. So Me 2.0 is college to first job. Promote Yourself is first job to management, and there's a leadership book because half the people my age have a management title and above and feel very isolated. The second thing is I was interviewed for a documentary out next year called The Revolution Generation. It's a portrait of my generation, and I was asked what the biggest obstacles we face are. Student loan debt crisis, world war, climate change, many others. But in my head, I was like, what's affecting our day-to-day? And that's our overuse and misuse of this technology, which has isolated us. And we feel very disconnected. And as a result, it's harmed our health and well-being, and that's made its way into the workplace, but it affects our personal life too, because we spend so much time working that if we're not doing well personally, we bring that into work. And if we have a bad work day, for instance, someone takes credit for our work, or we get into an argument with a coworker, we bring that into our personal life.
Yeah. Well, and if people are not connecting at work, chances are they're not connecting at home as well.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm seeing this happen at home too. I interviewed one leader, and him and his wife used to always look at devices in the bedroom, and then they looked at each other one day and like, what are we doing? And so they have a rule where they don't bring devices into the bedroom anymore. And then I interviewed Dr. Oz last year, and he said that, and more and more families are doing this actually, where they can't have their phone at the dining room table, so they can actually have a family conversation. So this is definitely happening more regularly because we're resisting the technology. We know that it could take over our lives, and we have the basic human need to connect, and technology sometimes can prevent us from doing that. And I was even talking to a client today, and they said that their kid's not allowed to have a technology device until 8th grade. And there's a whole movement going on called Wait Until Eighth.
I think that's a really great idea. Because, I mean, it's so much for parents to even know, you have to really get up on what the apps are using and everything. It's like a whole thing there.
Yeah, and there's always new technology. But, while technology changes, our basic human needs don't. There's 5 things that I think are consistent in our world. We're born, we die, we pay taxes. There's 24 hours in a day. And we have the need to connect. There's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So after safety, security, food, and shelter, we need love and friendships. Otherwise, we'll never be self-actualized. You'll never be able to do the best job possible and maximize your time and support your company and your leadership unless you are connecting and feel like you have leaders who support you and are invested in you. And without that, but what's the point? When you're 90 years old, you're not looking back and you're like, I wish I got one more promotion. No, you're thinking about, who do I miss and who's still in my life?
Yeah, and I mean, all the accolades in the world won't fill the hole that a friendship does when it's gone.
Exactly. And I think people, constantly comparing themselves to others on social media. They're seeing someone just got a car or a promotion. They're like, I want that, I want that. And so they lose track of who they actually are, and it puts them in the wrong direction. Whereas the smartest thing you could ever do is learn about more of who you are, what your needs are, because once you're fulfilled, this is chapter 1 of the book, it's much easier to make everyone else around you fulfilled because you'll be confident, you'll bring positive energy and a nice vision to the mix so that you can get other people to come on that journey with you. And then that also, you become a role model, inspire them to be able to live their best life. And if you're not figured out, you're not going to be able to do that for them because you're going to be just too concerned about yourself.
Well, and, people who are fulfilled they're just lights that people want to, be in. I know when someone walks in the room that's a dear friend of mine and they are happy and their life isn't going in the right direction, you just want to hang out with people like that, So, and it's interesting because I know you do so much work when we look at workplace productivity. How does technology undermine that?
Yeah, I mean, basically technology makes us think we're highly productive and we can multitask. When multitasking doesn't exist, your brain is just switching from one task to the other. And so while we think we're getting a lot done, a lot of the times we're distracted and it's counterproductive. I'll give you an example. The biggest thing that gets in the way of human-to-human interaction in the workplace is email. Yet a study in the Harvard Business Review found that one face-to-face conversation is more successful than 34 emails exchanged back and forth. So instead of going back and forth and hoping people understand what you mean, all you have to do is pick up the phone or walk 4 steps and explain yourself.
Back to Human has so much great research in it. When you were doing the research for this book, was there one that really kind of stuck out for you that you're like, wow, I can't believe that this is a thing?
The biggest finding in the book, and one of them in my whole career, I would say, is the dark side of remote work. I've worked remote for 8 years, so it resonates with me, and it's such a personal thing to so many people, so people have reacted in a strong way because of just talking about it. So everyone talks about the light side of working remote. You get the freedom and flexibility to work when, where, and how you want, and that's great. I think it's an amazing thing. It saves on commuting costs. The longer your commute, the more depressed you are. There's research on that. But there's a real dark side. The dark side is you don't get the human connection as much, and so therefore you become more isolated and lonely and disconnected, engaged. And the big finding is if you work remote, you're much less likely to want a long-term career at your company. So it affects team and organizational commitment, and that's a really big deal because retention, it can be a huge cost for a company, and obviously it's bad for someone's health, well-being, and career prospects.
Yeah, and without a doubt, because it takes so much to get a person to that place where they can do that job, and you don't want to let good people go. So, what are some of the tips that our listeners can use if they are working remotely to kind of be more connected?
Yeah, I give 2 great examples. One is one of the leaders in the book allows the remote worker to lead the meetings, almost treating the remote worker like they're in the office with them. I think it's so brilliant. It's simple. Anyone can do it. There's really no excuse that gets in the way of that. It's not like there's a budget for that or anything. And so I think letting them lead the meeting makes them feel like they belong, makes them feel like they're empowered, and they can actually voice themselves, even if they're not seen or heard. And I think video conferencing can make that even better because at least you can see them and hear their voice. Way more powerful than, texting or email or even a phone call. And I like another leader, they fly to all the remote sites at least once a year to get the human contact, to make them feel like, they know the leader and can get along with them. I think that's really powerful because, again, it costs like over $10,000 at least to replace each employee. So why not spend a fraction of that to fly down to meet them or to have them in at least one offsite per year? And that can make a huge difference. I mean, I just know in terms of my company, if I didn't see my business partners, my employees, if we didn't have 4 conferences for our clients every year, and I'm at one right now, I'm at the last one of the year right now, it would be a huge issue. They wouldn't work with us anymore.
Yeah, I mean, and you're so right. I mean, that in-person presentation, connecting with people, there's no replacement for that. FaceTime, all that, it's still not the same.
It'll never replace it. It might get close, maybe holograms and other things. It's like Star Wars with that hologram. Like, you feel like they're with you, but they're not. And even though we have chatbots now that, if someone dies, the chatbot makes it seem like they're still alive, because of like machine learning and the advancements we have. So senior citizens are sort of kept in company with the artificial intelligence versions of the people that they've lost. It's pretty interesting, right? But the reality is not the same. It'll never be the same, and we feel that even if we don't admit it.
Yeah, I think that would come with a whole another set of issues when we talk about grief and loss and what have you. But, I'm kind of thinking, because we've been talking about, just different companies, company culture, so what's the difference when we look at older, mature, employees versus younger employees?
Well, 2 things. One is I'm fearful of the upcoming generation. Teenagers would rather text than have a face-to-face meeting, and that's the first time that's ever happened. So millennials and Gen Xers and boomers and silent generation would rather have in person, even though some might use the technology too much over in person. And so I think I'm a little fearful on that, and I think that what we need to start to think about is use cases, right? So if you're trying to remind an employee to go to a meeting, a text message is suitable. But if you're in an argument or someone takes care of your work or, you're trying to communicate your vision, it's probably not effective to text about it and go back and forth and hope people get the point or hope you're resolving the issue. And then the other aspect is touch points, right? So every time you formally recognize an employee or share something with your employee, teach them something new, each time you do that, it's a touch point. It's reminding them that you care about them, that you're invested in them. And the more you do that, the more they want to stay with you and work hard for you.
Well, and on that topic, so how can the leaders, discover what type of recognitions different employees really respond to well?
Yeah, at a high level, cash bonuses are still number one, but once you get past that, they want formal recognition from their manager. And then number 3 is they want it from an executive. So recognition from the manager is really important. I interviewed former CEO and chairman of Yum Brands, David Novak, and he does it a very unique way, a very personal way. People want to be recognized in a personal way. So he gives like a rubber chicken or a chatterbox to employees, and they feel good about it. They laugh about it, and it means something to them. And while I think cash bonuses are important, a lot of people are struggling. They want to make more money to live better lives. I think at some level, just a few words can really make a difference in people's lives.
Well, and we mentioned positive work culture before. And so when a company does an assessment and says, okay, well, I don't think we have a really good, culture going on here. We need to make some shifts. What are some things that they can do?
The hardest thing is, in order to make a real shift, it comes from the top down. So if your leader is not on board with that shift, it doesn't matter. None of this matters that we talk about. So you want to get the top people on board and explain to them that if you create a more socialized work culture where it feels like a family, it's going to increase retention, and therefore you'll be able to grow faster. because you can't grow as a company if you're always trying to replace employees. It just is not going to happen. So I think getting the leadership on board, telling them that, and revealing a lot of this research can be, really effective. But I think also, it's about having leaders who are trustworthy and create a sense of belonging and purpose, and more of a happy culture where people can be themselves and do the best they can, and then the resources required for them to grow, because everyone wants to learn and develop, especially at a young age. And so if you can create a culture where people who are older are teaching people who are younger, people who are younger are teaching people who are older, and just, you have a diverse workplace where everyone's helping each other out together, that's how everyone can improve together and allows a company to grow faster.
Yeah, we need more of those nowadays, don't we? So it seems like companies are understanding the need for having a really positive culture, and some of them are not quite sure how to develop that. Is that something that you help them do as well? Let's say if there's a Fortune 500 company, they're trying to figure out, okay, we need to fix something because what we have isn't working. Do you come in and do assessments on that?
So we don't do assessments, but what we do is we advise companies, and we provide the necessary research and networks so that companies can meet other companies and showcase best practices so they can learn from each other. So we're community organizers and advisors, you could say. And then through the books and the presentations and the events and everything we do, the online courses, we help facilitate those interactions and that learning to help them improve and get better and show them what it looks like to have a good corporate culture.
I think that's a great start for those that are kind of confused on what the next step is or how to make those changes. Well, and so I know in this book, Back to Human, you interviewed 100 leaders, and you had all these great discussions. What was one that really stood out for you?
Yeah, the biggest one that stood out to me is a girl by the name of Rashida. She's an executive at IBM. And so she was working in North Carolina, and they relocated her to New York City, which is much more expensive. And so there was a lot of, financial concern, and she was very stressed out about the move. But her manager took her in like she was his child, supported her, got her connected, paid her enough. And as a result, she's still working there. And it goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because she had safety, shelter, food, and all her loving and friendship needs met. She was able to be a rock star, and she's my age, and she's an executive at the company, and it's one of the biggest companies in the world. So I think that type of empathy and support and understanding can really be helpful, and she will probably be talking about that situation for the rest of her life because of it.
That's so powerful. I mean, and I think it's so great to have people of different ages in the executive role, because, you get different perspectives. If you have all one perspective, nothing changes.
Exactly. So, yeah, I talk about diversity. I think you need to hire and connect with people on a value level. And then from there, you need people who might not look like you or come from the same background, so that you can be challenged in a very positive adult way, and that great ideas and innovations come from being challenged, because you come up with better solutions together.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Well, and so what final thoughts would you like to leave our listeners with today?
I think the most important message is use technology as a bridge to human connection, not a barrier. Let the technology guide you to a physical place, but when you're in that physical place, make sure you're present, attentive, listening, and showing respect, as well as communicating your ideas so that you can form stronger bonds, come up with better solutions, and your company and you will benefit as a result.
Well, Dan, I loved your book, Back to Human. I thought it was a great resource. It's full of so many just really top-notch ideas, and I can see why it's so popular. Where can our listeners go to connect with you and be part of your community?
You can go to danschawbel.com, DANSCHAWBEL.com. You can also take the Work Connectivity Index, workconnectivityindex.com, and it measures the strength of your work relationships. You get, a connectivity score, and if you have a low connectivity, that means you probably should be proactive in establishing more strong human connections with your team.
Well, it's a good place to touch base and figure out what's going on as far as being connected. Dan, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Dan. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and, of course, to talk about your new book, Back to Human. Back to Human's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie bookstores. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.